A startling mystery was hidden in Danny Kaye's estate after he passed away in 1987. There were 89,000 pieces hidden away that covered 7 decades, including unproduced scripts and enigmatic letters that altered our understanding of him. But his documents did not contain the most shocking revelation. A trove of private belongings exposed the sinister side of Hollywood's most beloved comedian, the crippling anxieties he concealed from everyone, and the dangers that caused him to doubt everything. As well as a scandal that might have put an end to his career. Danny Kaye was born in Brooklyn, New York, on January 18, 1911. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Ukraine named Jacob and Clara Kaminsky. Like a lot of families at the time, they experienced financial difficulties despite coming to America in search of a better life. Jacob put a lot of effort into making clothes as a tailor in order to put food on the table. Danny's parents lived with him in a modest apartment on Miller Avenue. To his grandma and older siblings. There was always laughing, even in a home where there was a lot of adversity. Danny was born with a talent for entertaining. He loved to sing songs to anyone who would listen and make goofy faces. Although his family didn't have much, they had one another. And Danny's sense of humor added a little amusement to even the most difficult days. The situation deteriorated further when the Great Depression struck in 1929. In Brooklyn, families were struggling to make ends meet while jobs vanished. The Kaminskys were no exception. Opportunities were limited and funds were tight. Danny, however, never lost his sense of humor. He leaned even further into it, if anything. He came to see that laughter might improve everyone's mood, not just his family. Despite attending Thomas Jefferson High School, he was never comfortable in a classroom. He was constantly focused on performing. When all he wanted to do was be on stage, it seemed pointless to sit through lessons. His love of entertainment and his desire to sustain himself were 2 factors that ultimately led him to drop out. He took on any tasks he could find in order to get money. At a nearby shop, he made drinks and scooped ice cream as a soda jerk. He briefly worked as an insurance salesman. Even though it didn't last long, he was hired to work in a dentist's office. He carved into the wooden office furniture one day while experimenting with the dental drill. His dental career came to an end at that point. In his early teens, he suffered the devastating loss of his mother. His grief kept him awake. He and a companion fled to Florida because he needed a way out. They had no clear strategy, so they just entertained. They made barely enough money to survive by playing guitar and singing on street corners. Danny was richer when he got back to New York than he was before he left. It wasn't much, but it was evidence that he had the talent to succeed. With a strong desire to succeed, he began acting in local theatrical productions. His first significant break came in the early 1930s when he joined the Three Terpsichoreans, a vaudeville act. He made the decision to change his name at this point. Although he was familiar with David Kaminsky, Danny Kaye seemed like a fresh talent, someone born for the stage. The business of vaudeville was not easy. With comedians, musicians, dancers, and magicians vying for the audience's attention, the performances were frantic. However, Danny was the most noticeable. His timing was impeccable, his intensity electrifying. The Three Terpsichoreans embarked on a tour in 1933, visiting places in Asia and all around the United States. One performance was interrupted by a typhoon in Osaka, Japan. The entire theater was in complete darkness as the power went out. With a lantern in hand, Danny entered the stage and began to perform. He performed every song he could think of, entertaining the crowd till the storm passed. These kinds of instances were what made him unique. He was more than a performance. He was a performer. Additionally, he performed in the Borscht Belt, which is the Catskill Mountains. Jewish families loved it as a vacation destination, and the hotels there were well known for their live entertainment. A lot of talented comedians began their careers with Catskills. Danny wasn't an exception. He was an entertainer who kept the audience laughing in between performances. The training ground was ideal. He gained skills in improvisation, crowd reading, and making any circumstance humorous. His major break came in 1939 when he appeared in the Straw Hat Revue, a musical comedy. The Ambassador Theater in New York hosted the premiere of the production on September 29. Although it began as a summer performance at the Pennsylvania Theatrical Retreat Camp Tamiment, producers spotted potential and made the decision to bring it to Broadway. Rising stars like Jerome Robbins, Alfred Drake, and Imogene Coca were also part of the cast. One of them was Kaye. He saw this performance as more than just another show. It was his opportunity to be noticed. His vivacity, sense of humor, and musical ability left a lasting impression. His delivery of sentences made people laugh before they really understood why. He displayed a skill that would eventually become his signature in his fast-paced, funny melodies. After just 75 performances, the show ended on December 2nd. However, Kaye had already left an impression by that point. Shortly after, he began playing at a popular nightclub called La Martinique, where he first encountered Sylvia Fine. She was a gifted writer and composer who would eventually marry him. She started creating content that capitalized on his strengths after noticing something unique about him. Together, they created a witty, comical, and entirely original act. Audiences adored him. Before long, Broadway called once more. It would all change for Kaye when he landed a part in the musical Lady in the Dark in 1941. On January 23, it debuted at the Alvin Theatre and ran for 467 shows. Broadway had never seen a show like this one before. Dream sequences that delved into the main character's psyche were used to tell the plot, rather than a traditional musical. Gertrude Lawrence portrayed Liza Elliott, a successful magazine editor who battled self-doubt. Ira Gershwin wrote the lyrics and Kurt Weill composed the music, which woven through her visions to create a bizarre and intensely personal universe. Russell Paxton, a colorful fashion photographer, was portrayed by Kaye. One song made him the star of the show, even though he didn't have the major role. They dubbed it Tchaikovsky. In less than a minute, Kaye quickly rattled off the names of over 50 Russian composers. The music was demanding. Only a select few performers were able to meet the demands of flawless breath control, precise timing, and a certain amount of confidence. The audience let out a loud cheer when Kaye performed it. The house fell silent night after night as he performed. Danny Kaye did not enter Hollywood overnight, however. With an energy that no one had ever seen before, he exploded into the scene. Up in Arms, his debut feature picture, was a watershed. It was not your typical musical comedy. The movie was based on Kaye's special ability. He portrayed Danny Weems, an eccentric elevator operator who enlists in the military. The character allowed him to simultaneously showcase his musical abilities, physical comedy, and fast-talking wit. It was adored by audiences. The critics paid attention. The movie instantly made Kaye a star and garnered 2 Academy Award nominations. It wasn't merely luck. One of the largest producers in Hollywood, Samuel Goldwyn, recognized Kaye's talent early on. In order to prevent rival studios from acquiring him, he signed him to a contract. It took months to produce Up in Arms. Between June and September of 1943. With Flying Colors was the initial title of the movie, but it was later altered. Key parts were played by Constance Dowling, Dana Andrews, and Dinah Shore. To fit Kaye's approach, Ted Koehler and Harold Arlen composed songs for the soundtrack. The whole movie was designed to show off his strengths. Kaye starred in one of his most well-known roles 3 years later in 1947's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. The movie wasn't a straight adaptation, but it was based on one of James Thurber's short stories. It was transformed into a full-scale adventure by Hollywood. Kaye portrayed the shy proofreader Walter Mitty, who uses complex daydreams to escape his boring existence. He is a brave pilot 1 minute. After that, he becomes a gunslinger. Then he is an excellent surgeon. However, he finds himself in an adventure that surpasses his wildest expectations when a genuine mystery enters his life. Everything was in the movie. Boris Karloff, Ann Rutherford, and Virginia Mayo are among the outstanding supporting cast members. A story with lots of twists and turns that moves quickly. Most significantly, it featured Kaye at his peak. One of the most well-known scenes was when he sang the tongue-twisting song Anatole of Paris. Another musical composition for the movie, Symphony for Unstrung Tongue, was written by his wife, Sylvia Fine. These were more than just amusing moments. In a way that no one else could, they demonstrated Kaye's amazing ability to combine comedy with music. The movie was a success, and his performance solidified his status as one of Hollywood's most distinctive performers. With The Inspector General, he took on a new task in 1949. Nikolai Gogol's play, written in Russian, served as the loose inspiration for this musical comedy. Georgie, portrayed by Kaye, is an illiterate vagrant who is mistaken for a high-ranking government figure. Kaye had what he needed to succeed in the movie. Slapstick humor, fast-paced language, and a part that allowed him to transition between characters and accents. It was not only a humorous story. Its broader message was one of deceit and corruption. By mistake, Georgie, a common man, reveals the avarice of high-ranking authorities. The film's director, Henry Koster, made sure to strike a balance between a poignant narrative and fun. With a budget of around $3 million, the movie was one of Kaye's largest projects to date. Although the Technicolor film was visually spectacular, Kaye's performance was the true standout. He stood out from other actors of his time because of his ability to blend witty humor with more profound subjects. Kaye was a well-known comic by the late 1950s, but he wasn't scared to try anything new. He portrayed jazz pianist Red Nichols in the 1959 historical drama The Five Pennies. His typical comedies were not the same as this movie. A gifted musician who finds it difficult to reconcile his love of jazz with his personal life, Kaye portrayed Nichols. Kaye had to be more serious and emotional in order to play the part. There was a good supporting cast in the movie. Tuesday Weld is Nichols' daughter, and Barbara Bel Geddes is his wife. The appearance of real-life jazz greats like Louis Armstrong gave the movie a genuine atmosphere. Famous musicians Glenn Miller and Jimmy Dorsey were part of Nichols' band, which was referenced to as The Five Pennies in the title. Although the movie used some artistic license with Nichols' life, it nonetheless managed to convey the spirit of his passion for music and the sacrifices he made during his lifetime. Danny Kaye, meantime, was appointed UNICEF's first Goodwill ambassador in 1954, although he had an odd beginning to his relationship with the organization. He first encountered UNICEF Executive Director Maurice Pate while traveling from England to the US. A fire caused the jet to make an emergency landing during the journey. As they waited, Pate filled Kaye in on UNICEF's mission and the struggles that children face globally. Something in Kaye changed when he listened. That discussion resulted in a lifetime commitment. This was no ordinary celebrity collaboration. Kaye made the cause his own, not simply by giving it his name. In more than 60 nations, he met doctors, parents, and children. Seeing firsthand what UNICEF was working to improve, he visited hospitals and strolled through towns. He moved people by doing more than just giving speeches. Such a person was needed by UNICEF. The group was beginning long-term health, education, and nutrition projects at the time, going beyond immediate aid. Kaye made the world realize how important this was. His vivacity, humor, and charm got people to listen. He avoided speaking in a condescending manner and using complex terminology in his speeches. He made everything easy. He brought them to life. The 1956 documentary Assignment Children, which focused on UNICEF's activities in Asia, was one of his most significant endeavors. It demonstrated how UNICEF was assisting in the difficulties the children encountered. The movie moved viewers in addition to educating them. It swayed opinions and raised funds. Kaye worked non-stop. For UNICEF, he traveled for years. Occasionally, he will fly himself to far-off places. Due to his skills as a pilot, he was able to visit difficult-to-reach locations. He was more than just a worker. He had a sincere belief in his work. His efforts were recognized. He was honored in 1981 with the John Hirschfeld Humanitarian Award, an Oscar bestowed upon individuals who used their celebrity for charitable purposes. The greatest acknowledgement, however, was in 1965. Kaye was among the group of people who accepted the Nobel Peace Prize for UNICEF. He had contributed to the organization's expansion, and many people were motivated to follow in his footsteps by his efforts. Danny Kaye and Sylvia Fine were married in 1940. This was not merely a romantic tale. A collaboration that will influence his entire career began. Composer and songwriter Sylvia had a keen sense of talent. She had more faith than merely Danny. She had a knack for turning him into a celebrity. Despite having grown up in the same Brooklyn neighborhood, they had never met. They collaborated on an off-Broadway production in 1939, which changed that. Sylvia was a pianist for auditions. Danny was an up-and-coming entertainer hoping for his big break. Both of them were unaware of how deeply ingrained their bond was. The dentist father of Sylvia. Danny was once employed for odd jobs. That minor detail became a family joke years later. From the time of their marriage, Sylvia was instrumental in Danny's career. Many of his hallmark tunes were written by her. She was more familiar with his style, quickness, enthusiasm, and ability to transform a song into something truly memorable than anyone else. Among his greatest early hits were Sylvia's compositions, such as those from Wonder Man and Up in Arms. She wasn't only a songwriter, though. She made sure the world saw him the way he was supposed to be perceived, oversaw his career, and gave him advice. Although they had a solid marriage, it wasn't flawless. For a while, they were apart in the late 1940s. Danny and actress Eve Arden were rumored to be involved, but whatever caused them to split up wasn't strong enough to hold them apart. After making amends, they remained together for the remainder of Danny's life. Danny and Sylvia are thought to have adopted 2 daughters. Not true. Danny Kaye was born in 1946, their only child. They had a discreet family life from the beginning. Danny did not share his private life with the public, in contrast to many Hollywood celebrities. The same was true for Sylvia. She never tried to attract attention to herself. She stayed in the background and was constantly focused on Danny's career. Dina grew up in an artistic environment. It felt as though her father's vitality would never run out. He was constantly pursuing new hobbies and challenging himself to pick up new skills. He never allowed his hectic job to overshadow his responsibilities as a father. It was Danny Kaye's destiny to amuse. He performed with energy and a sharp wit that made people laugh. The audience was unaware of the terror he carried before each performance, though. His career was plagued by stage fright. However much experience he gathered, it was a never-ending battle. He would pace backstage with his hands clasped and his heart pounding. He had done it 100 times before, but doubt sopped in. His closest colleague and wife, Sylvia Fine, knew how to pull him back from the brink. From the beginning, she had been by his side, helping to shape his career with her keen literary and musical skills. She was his anchor, though, more than anything else. She calmed him down and soothed him before every performance, reminding him why he was there. In ways that few realized, he depended on her. The same level of intensity accompanied Danny's efforts. Good enough never satisfied him. Each performance needed to be accurate. Every song, every joke, and every motion has to be flawless. He repeatedly revised texts, making even the smallest adjustments. If anything didn't feel right, he would fix it until it was just right. The rehearsals were draining. He repeatedly rehearsed performances. Make certain that the time was perfect. It was annoying to some of his co-stars, but Danny thought comedy was a science. He would keep trying until he found the correct way to do it. Co-stars and directors occasionally resented his perfectionism because they thought he was too controlling. Filming The Court Jester in 1955 is a noteworthy instance of this conflict. The movie had intricate swordfight sequences, which Kaye practiced a lot to make sure the humorous parts were performed perfectly. Disagreements with his co-star Basil Rathbone and director Melvin Frank occasionally resulted from his obsession with getting every detail just correct. But in the end, the movie showed off Kaye's distinct fusion of humor and athletic prowess, proving that his perfectionist tendencies were a major contributor to his success. As a comic, Danny Kaye was more than that. He was born with a talent for languages. He played with them, not just spoke them. As if it were inconsequential, he alternated between dialects in The Court Jester. He sounded like a lord one minute, then like a clumsy idiot the next. His act was much more hilarious as a result. But it wasn't merely a performance. In real life, he enjoyed conversing with individuals in their own tongue. He always made an effort wherever he went. He greeted people in French if they spoke the language. He changed the language to Italian if it was that. Despite its flaws, it was sufficient to make people happy. He took it a step farther on stage. He once used German-sounding gibberish to lead an entire orchestra. He was understood by the musicians somehow. He gave gibberish the feel of a true language. He had a certain allure. His ability to connect with others transcended language. And then there was air travel. His passion was not limited to aircraft. His goal was to pilot them himself. The late 1950s saw the beginning of it. After learning to fly, Kaye chose to follow in the footsteps of a friend. A Cessna 150 was his first aircraft. He soon progressed to larger planes. He eventually received training to pilot a Learjet. It was not something that everyone could accomplish. That required a great deal of skill. For him, flying was more than a hobby. He put it to good use. He flew a Learjet for UNICEF to 65 destinations in 5 days in 1968. He wasn't merely a wealthy celebrity. He invested himself in the task. His goal was to change things. Because of his extraordinary commitment, Learjet's founder appointed him honorary vice president. The fact that he had gained the respect of actual pilots was evident even though it was only a title. Then there was cooking. Like everything else, it began as a curiosity and was taken seriously by Kaye. He studied in addition to cooking. He studied the ins and outs of Chinese and Italian cooking under renowned chefs. Behind his residence, he even constructed a unique kitchen. It included powerful stoves suited for cooking Chinese food. He desired for everything to be perfect. He became the chef at Johnny Can's restaurant in 1967. For an important occasion, he prepared meals for more than 200 people, including some high-ranking CBS officials. It was a tremendous success. He received an honorary prize, which is often given to experts, from French chefs who were so amazed. However, cooking wasn't about accolades for Kaye. Its purpose was to unite people. In addition to hosting large dinners for friends, he frequently did it for charity. He raised money for organizations he was passionate about by using his love of eating. Similar to how he did with flight and language, he managed to transform his passion into something worthwhile. An amazing discovery was made about Danny Kaye's fortune after his death in 1987. He kept a vast collection of artifacts that encapsulated his life and profession hidden away for years. The Library of Congress currently has the collection, which spans the years 1918 to 1992 and includes over 89,000 artifacts. The majority of it stems from 1946 to 1988, when he was at the height of his career. It contains rare photos, personal correspondence, costumes, and scripts. With each piece, we get a peek into the world of a comedian, musician, and dancer. The scripts in the anthology are among its most intriguing features. These scripts are not just any kind. Scripts from his earlier radio series from the 1940s and content from The Danny Kaye Show, which aired on television from 1963 to 1967, are included. The Court Jester, 1956, Hans Christian Andersen, 1952, and Up in Arms, 1944, are among his most well-known films. These records demonstrate Kaye's ability to bring his characters to life by fusing charm, comedy, and musical ability. What's even more fascinating about this revelation are the projects that are not visible. Notes and sketches for unmade movies and stage productions are among the treasures, showing a side of Kaye that few people ever saw. Despite never appearing on stage or screen, these concepts demonstrate how his intellect was always innovating, pushing the envelope, and honing his trade. These documents contain sketches of scenarios, scribbled notes on scripts, and ideas that may have become his next great smash. The collection also reflects Kaye's career, which was heavily influenced by music. His wife, Sylvia Fine, wrote a large number of the manuscripts and lyric sheets. She helped him shape his musical identity by working with such renowned artists as Elmer Bernstein and Sammy Cahn. Together, they helped establish the distinctive rhythm and tone that contributed to Kaye's performance's lasting impact. Not every item in the collection has a direct connection to his professional life. His diverse range of interests is reflected in some of the objects. Items discovered include a parachute, a bullwhip, model airplanes, an engraved walking stick from Harry Lauder, and even souvenir baseballs. They all convey a tale about the individual who does the performances. Kaye's love of baseball, aircraft, and even cooking is well known, and these personal items provide a better understanding of his interests outside of entertainment. The images in the series are equally illuminating. There are headshots by well-known photographers such as Philippe Halsman, Roddy McDowell, and Lotte Meitner-Graf. However, behind the studio shots are unstaged situations from his life. Press conferences, get-togethers, and performances. They depict Kaye in both his professional and recreational settings, displaying the warmth and charm that won Kaye so many fans. Danny Kaye's legacy is not limited to his acting. His influence on charity and entertainment never ceases to motivate. His name is preserved in the Grammy Hall of Fame, which recognizes recordings that have had a significant impact over time. In 1973, the Grammy Hall of Fame was established to honor music that has endured. Although nothing is known about Kaye's admittance, there is no denying his impact on humor in music. His ability to combine the two was unique. He transformed songs into performances that astounded audiences. Tchaikovsky from Lady in the Dark, in which he quickly listed the names of Russian composers, was one of his most well-known performances. His approach became renowned and had a lasting impact on comedians and artists. His genius was also acknowledged by Hollywood. On the Hollywood Walk of Fame, his name is listed 3 times. He received awards for recording at 6125 Hollywood Boulevard, radio at 6101 Hollywood Boulevard, and motion movies at 656.3 Hollywood Boulevard. At the pinnacle of his career, he was awarded his Motion Picture Star on February 8, 1960. Not only were his movies well liked, but they also became timeless masterpieces. Hans Christian Andersen, White Christmas, and The Court Jester are still cherished now. Among the most diverse performers of his era, he stood out for his charisma, vitality, and sharp humor. He continues to have an impact on humor and movies, serving as an inspiration to numerous comedians and performers. Kaye's legacy was formed by his love of assisting people, which went beyond entertainment. Both the arts and the well-being of children were very important to him and his wife, Sylvia Fine. They continue their efforts through the Danny Kaye and Sylvia Fine Kaye Foundation. It centers on two of their top priorities: assisting underprivileged kids and promoting arts education. Kaye recognized the value of the arts in the lives of young people. As a young entertainer in the Catskills, he witnessed firsthand the transformative power of theater and song. The organization makes ensuring that activities in theater, dance, and music are accessible to youngsters from disadvantaged backgrounds, granting them access to opportunities that they might not otherwise get. Beyond the stage, Kaye was extremely committed to helping children. Through his global work with UNICEF, he raised awareness of the needs of children everywhere. He made use of his notoriety for a cause rather than himself. By supporting initiatives that give children who need it most access to healthcare, education, and nutrition, the foundation carries out its objective.